So I'm Clay Collier, part of Strong Towns Lexington, and we're doing our first walk audit today in Kenwick. And we have a nice group of folks here. We're going to walk and learn today. Mike Houston.
Yes. Say your
Sarah
name.
Gerking, Liz Sheehan, Hannah LeGree,
Peter Ward. And name?
Nate Hahn.
Nate Hahn. Okay. So yeah, we're just going to walk around and look at some of the great things in this neighborhood and maybe opportunities where it could be even better. So let's get going.
So we're here, Richmond Avenue. That's my house, like 3 doors down. You'll notice that in a lot of the neighborhood, we have curb-tight sidewalks because they were put in 50 years after the neighborhood was like laid out. It's actually the reason the Kenwick Neighborhood Association exists is because it was formed in like 79 or 80 for a community block development grant from the federal government to get these sidewalks installed.
And the sewers.
Oh yeah, and sewers, because until the merger, this was county. The city lines did like a weird sawtooth pattern down Richmond Road, and we were one of the gaps. The other thing is you'll notice heavier traffic and that we have speed tables, which we're kind of perfectly in the middle of, because Richmond Avenue is the last street that connects to National, and this end of National is still very industrial, lots of tradesmen, your contractors, plumbers, whatnot. And in addition to that, there's also kids martial arts and an indoor soccer field that does youth sports. So
I just wanted to add something about the history of the sidewalks, that this condition where you have the sidewalk up against the curb kind of works okay here because you've got parking along the street, so it's kind of the buffer to protect pedestrians. But ideally you want the sidewalk a little bit off the street, maybe with street trees to kind of buffer the pedestrians a little bit more. So
here's an example of like some of the missing middle housing we have throughout the neighborhood. This, you can tell, used to be an older commercial building with apartments on top. It has since been converted fully to all residential. I don't think we can kind of see it, but there was at one point like 3 corner stores within like a third of a mile of each other. One was here, and all but Wilson's have been converted to residential, but they are mixed, they are multi-unit. You can see we have the stormwater intakes. This is kind of a problem on Kramer, of the crossings for Kramer are kind of rough because like technically you can cross here, I think by state law, because it's an unmarked crossing, but there's no real like facilities for it.
So community organizers have done bike bus and walk bus, so people meet along at the different stops, and the kind of there's like some crowd gathering as you go along, and it really makes a clear space in the road for the people that are biking or along the sidewalk where people are walking. But you can see these kind of all the kids and the adult chaperones and everything moving together, so it really like kind of takes back that space from the cars a bit.
The old corner store, Wilson's, the current owner, his wife wanted a children's bookstore, so they literally shoehorned it in there. Highly recommend going into it, but it's also dangerous to go in there with kids. And pretty much every Saturday they do an outdoor story time at around 10:30. So we're about to pass it.
these types of buildings, which used to be prevalent in older neighborhoods, a little corner grocery store, you don't see those around much anymore, but thankfully Kenwick still has one. And a lot of neighborhoods this would not be permitted, right? The zoning wouldn't allow for a small commercial use inside a single family neighborhood, but we think this is a great example of how it brings the community together. We're having a neighborhood story time over here with the kids.
This is my district, and you can see just here there's a parking lot for the church, and then just down from that there's a couple of residences and a coffee shop called Kenwick Table that came to the neighborhood, and it kind of seamlessly integrates with the other housing here, which is really nice. So as we walk through here, you'll be able to see that we were able to put some yellow curbing in to allow for people to access their driveways and not have them blocked all the time. But then we also were able to help the church and the business talk about shared parking here. So when the church isn't using this parking lot on Sundays, then patrons of the coffee shop can park here. This shop, like, we talk about it as a coffee shop, but it's actually become a hub for a lot of evening activity too, where they have music here regularly, they have trivia nights, they have book clubs that meet here, so there's all kinds of things that are happening.
I just wanted to point out how much of an asset I think this is for the neighborhood. We talk about the lack of third places in neighborhoods, so third places where people just kind of casually come together. And when I walked in there this morning, and I had never been there before, there were groups of 8 and 10 people sitting around tables talking. And it's something that most neighborhoods don't have or are not even permitted to have, and might even resist if you came in and tried to say, hey, let's allow little coffee shops inside the neighborhood. But for me, this is one of the things that makes Kenwick a great neighborhood.
It used to be a corner store, and the only reason that Kenwick Table was, I think, able to go in here was because it was a zoning overlook of just like, it's a leftover.
It's grandfathered in, I
Yeah,
guess.
one of the side benefits, now that we have, you could see that it essentially becomes one lane when both sides have parking on it. It's slowed people down through here. Been somewhat of a positive, even though it is bringing people from all over the city. You can see here we don't technically have any crosswalks. Even this one is unstriped. I didn't notice it until I saw it from the satellite view, but you have a tight curb radius right there, whereas this one is much more sweeping.
Sweeping turns like this are problematic because people can go faster around the turn, right? And they might have a conflict with the pedestrian crossing.
This is one of the conversations that we're having around our complete streets policy, is what should intersections like this look like in the future? Like, what do we want to be? What do we want our vision to be? And so we are working on quick installation pilot programs and asphalt art programs to really explore these ideas and start really trying them out and exploring like what it could look like, but make that decision in a data-based way, right? So try it out, see how the traffic patterns change, and then decide if you want to make that a permanent installation. We had new families moving into this neighborhood, and we started having more younger children, and so we actually put in a new swing set in the back that you might be able to see. What some of our neighborhoods don't have yet that Kenwick does have is what we kind of talk about these as like pocket parks, where you just have a little park tucked in, so you have green space here, you have a playground. We also, at our Kenwick Community Center behind us, where we have lots of family and kid things going on in the afternoon and evenings, we've had a pickleball group of older adult, primarily women, wanted an indoor pickleball space, so there's a basketball court in there that we have striped for pickleball, and we have made an outdoor court here on the basketball court. And then we needed some activation in this community center during the day, so we've recently actually opened some programming called the Veterans Unity Point. So we have veterans community members meeting here during the day for support and to get connection to resources and some community building with our veteran community. But then we have all of the family and kid-oriented stuff in the afternoon and the evenings in both spaces.
So here's an example of a newer duplex that's put in previously. All of Kenwick has been zoned R2, which allowed up for duplexes. It still required one parking spot per unit. The backyard is concrete because that was required by the city.
The thing they did right is they didn't put that parking garage on the front of the house like you see in a lot of neighborhoods. They tucked it back almost like an alley condition, which is good.
Yeah,
And the design, the scale of it kind of fits in with the neighborhood, and yeah, I think they did a pretty good job.
the oldest houses in Kenwick go from like the 1920s, but there's very much decades you can see of things being built from, like, you'll see little snapshots of decades. The further away you get from Richmond Avenue, the wider the streets get. That's about.
I've heard people sometimes complain about narrower streets, like, oh, it's hard to drive through there, but actually that is a good thing, because it slows cars down as they're going through these narrow streets. Sometimes they're called yield streets because you have to stop and yield for the car. I always say the less it feels like an airport runway, the slower the traffic's going to be. You make it look like a runway, people are going to speed up.
Not many houses face the parallel streets.
Right.
It's like the crossing streets are usually the primaries, with these literally just being travel roads. There's occasionally some houses or somebody's like garage will face to it, but that's about it. Kind of leads to the speeding problem, because what do they say? Make the street look like somebody's backyard, and people won't speed as much.
Yeah.
But this very much feels like we're in a
The
big
backyard.
alley with all the fencing, hardly any neighbors forward. And then here's 2 duplexes. I think it's actually more than that. I think
Let's stop and talk. Well, when you hear people talk about missing middle housing, which is kind of everything between kind of a single family house and maybe a large apartment building, there's a whole range of housing types that fall in the middle ground, which used to be allowed by right in older neighborhoods like this one in Ashland Park across. So they provide, again, more housing choices for people. I know my dad, the first house that he lived in as a small kid was on Ridgeway Drive, and it was an apartment that my grandparents rented because they didn't have enough money to buy a house. So they were able to live in a nice neighborhood and just rent the space for much less than they would have to pay to buy it. So these are great examples of duplexes that fall in that category, right?
And I'd also point out they're closer to the street. They all have porches, and the front yards are small. But that's the difference between sitting on the porch and chatting with your neighbor as they walk by, or not even realizing that they're passing or that somebody's on their porch when you're walking by, because they're just a little bit further away.
And this is a good example of where they use the corner lot and have a nice elevation on the side. We saw some that are on corner lots and they just have a blank wall against the side of the street. This has a really nice elevation. So we're done with our tour. Thanks for joining us on this tour of Kenwick neighborhood. I think we found a lot of great things happening here and a few lessons learned as well. Anybody else want to add anything to?
I had fun. I learned a lot. The cameraman learned a lot.
Thanks to Sawyer who did our camera work, and now we just got to see if we can stitch it together.